Welcome to the Cloud Pod, where the forecast is always cloudy. We talk weekly about all things AWS, GCP, and Azure. We are your hosts,
Justin,
Jonathan,
Ryan,
and Peter.
Episode 202. The Bing is dead. Long live the Bing. Hey, Ryan and Peter.
Hey there. Sounds so British, Justin.
I feel like I'm making up for missing the last couple episodes since Justin's not here and I am.
Well, Justin is overseas right now, and we decided the internet was probably not going to stand up to him hosting the call for the show today, so we're here by ourselves.
We will make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so starting with general news. Alphabet needs to replace Sundar Pichai. Shareholders in Alphabet are saying it's time for drastic action after the stock is up just 1.9% for the year, compared with the overall NASDAQ increase of 10%. In comparison with other FAANG companies like Meta, which is up 41% year to date. Much of this may be a perception where Meta has talked about the year of efficiency and making corrections in the core business. Investors are also pointing to the bungling of the investment in AI, allowing OpenAI and Microsoft to beat them to the sort of GPT market. Based on all this, analysts believe Alphabet need a radical overhaul to create a more action-oriented management team that is able to move faster. Unfortunately, CEO Sundar Pichai has a reputation of being indecisive, especially when compared with CFO Ruth Porat, who is seen to be the kind of decisive leader Alphabet needs.
I feel like we're talking about NFL coaches right now. Dude, the guy's like MVP candidate, coach of the year candidate last year, and a year later, things didn't go well. That time to be replaced.
It's always the problem, like with public companies, right? Like measured by the performance of the market and in comparison, and it's such a weird comparison to make. Like, you know, the strategy of the company and the returns year over year, when the job is to, you know, do long-term strategy that's over the course of many years. And it is pretty funny that, you know, it's like how opinionated the article is about, you know, the successor already. Just like, yeah, okay, you know, like, and it might be, you know, more hubbub and people in the know, and I'm not, so that's a factor. But it is, I always, articles like this, I'm just like, yeah, all right.
I think it's kind of weird. People have such short-term memories. I mean, the reason Meta is up 41% this year is because at the beginning of the year, they started with such a tragically low stock price.
Yeah.
I mean, they were down like $120, whereas mid 2022, they were up close to $230, I think. And so, you know, they took a huge hit, and great, they've managed to make their way like 80% back to where they were a year and a half ago. But you know, but yeah, it's a weird comparison to make.
It is. I agree. I was thinking the same thing. Like, it's pretty easy to make a 41% increase when you're down 64% the previous year.
Yeah, when management is, I think that the ultimate sort of dichotomy is that these management teams are held to account every quarter for making their numbers. And then at the same time, we have this imaginary idea that they have these long-term conspiratorial plans to take over the world. It's like they're just trying to make next quarter's numbers so they don't get fired.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, moving on to AWS. Amazon EKS now supports Kubernetes version 1.2.5.
Woo!
EKS distro, and EKS Anywhere now support Kubernetes 1.2.5. This release is dubbed the Combiner, which is awesome. We should totally start dubbing all of the releases with wrestler names. It's called the Combiner due to diverse components in the release, as well as the individuals who contributed. Several changes coming in 1.2.5. But the most notable is being the removal of Pod Security Policies. Because you never need security. But I guess the deprecation of PSPs was in 1.2.1, and it was replaced with the new Pod Security Admission Controller, which sounds boring. I want to make it fun, but it's not.
Sounds kind of confessional.
In addition, it has some new security features, including network policy port ranges and using the runtime default as the default SecComp profile, as well as the removal of wildcard queries in the core DNS plugin. They continue to move away from the in-tree storage drivers with the removal of storage plugins, and the container storage interface is graduating to stable. lots of improvements. Other improvements and enhancements are updates to the AWS IAM Authenticator. Local ephemeral storage capacity isolation is stable. Daemon set max surge is stable. cgroups v2 is stable. Ephemeral containers reach stable. Makes me wonder what all the unstable things are. Unstable? Unstable?
Unstable. Not Istanbul.
Yeah, sounds amazing.
I'm curious to know if there's anyone listening who sees anything here as we need to upgrade right away. These are features we've been waiting for and we've been missing. I don't know.
I think
either of you have any feel about
yeah,
that?
I mean, I don't have any complex workloads on Kubernetes. I do feel that the fact that they only keep the support for the last few versions kind of forces that, which is good. I think that'll keep people updating. And these are, I don't think there's anything that's day breaking in here, but they're definitely convenience sets, right? Like think about like daemon set max surge, that functionality. That's an edge case, right? You're not going to hit that, on your day to day, but when you hit it, it's going to be painful. And so like, this is, you're going to be able to isolate that capacity and be able to allocate it as needed. That's awesome, right? Those types of things. So nice.
Cool. Jonathan, are you getting hollered at to upgrade your Kubernetes clusters?
I'm not. No, I'm afraid. So I guess cgroups v2 brings some nice new features, which make like resource allocation management and reporting of memory allocations and things a little better than they were in v1. But I don't think it's anything particularly groundbreaking.
Most people don't run so lean and allocated that that level of reservation is really needed. It's nice and you want the ability to, but it's also sort of there are easier ways to sort of manage the problem.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's one of the things I don't hear a ton of commotion about at our customers. Granted, I'm not obviously in the trenches as much anymore, but clamoring for new Kubernetes features and stressing over getting them released and rolled out hasn't been a topic of conversation with any of my customers. So it's kind of interesting because it's obviously evolving super quick, and all this stuff I can imagine is really important to people who need it. But I don't hear it as much as I hear other urgent, important issues. So
yeah, I guess some of these things are kind of like very minor optimizations, and the elephant in the room is actually running Kubernetes at scale, reliably and responsibly.
And responsibly, yeah, really.
Yeah, don't drink in Kubernetes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's pretty good. I think 1.26 is the latest release, so Amazon are doing a good job keeping up with getting EKS updated.
That might be why I don't hear too much about it, because they're doing such a good job of staying up to date.
I think that's a large, a large part is the community, right? And so if you get too far behind the latest release of Kubernetes, all of a sudden, all of your content that you go to forums and help pages and stuff gets wildly out of date, and it really becomes unmaintainable. So
right.
Amazon, it's always going to be a race for these cloud providers to manage their Kubernetes or managed service offerings in general to stay up to date, because it's challenging.
Yeah, well, so Amazon has finally announced ECS task definition deletion. I mean, how long has ECS been around? Can you imagine?
That's a long time, yeah.
How many task definitions are floating around that aren't used? So you could finally delete old task definition revisions. Prior to now, we got to deregister them so they wouldn't display in API unless you chose to select a task revision that was inactive. Obviously, this is messy and ends up with high numbers of revisions floating around. But some of these, I think the article points this out, some of these old task definitions can also contain sensitive data that you would no longer like exposed, like secrets and environment variables. And there were no ways to get rid of them. So now you can delete your Amazon ECS tasks.
Yeah, funny. I didn't even think about the environment variables, which often contain credentials or other configuration information being available via the API. I've definitely lamented it. My 9,600 ECS task revisions for some of my services. So much so that I've actually changed some of my CI/CD patterns where I didn't really need the blue green aspects to keep the service up. I would just blow away the whole task definition and replace it wholesale, just because it was simpler than trying to manage the revision. So this is kind of nice. I like this.
Yeah, I think it's probably more useful for people who are used to clicking through things in the console, because if you manually need to go into the console and update a service to use a previous task definition, it populates a drop-down box, and if you've got hundreds or thousands of revisions in the drop-down, it tends to not work so efficiently in the console. But yeah, I guess getting rid of sensitive data is kind of useful, especially if you've got skeletons of doing things the wrong way early on in the dev process.
Well, you can have, like, if you use some of the more sophisticated sort of CI/CD patterns where you're doing, canary traffic to your newest revision, like that's where, I've used revisions a whole lot, because you can actually manage that through the ECS service, where it'll slowly phase out that new revision over time, or based on traffic or blah. And so, like, if you leverage that a whole bunch, then you're going to end up over time just with billions of revisions. So it is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I'm kind of picturing environment variables for a revision when the auditor comes through for your PCI audit, and it's like username, administrator, password, and then it's got the welcome with the capital W and the 3 instead of the E, and then the exclamation point at the end, just to meet all the requirements.
Hey, that's my password. Quiet.
Yeah. And the guy just looks at you, he's like, really?
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Sometimes keeping evidence around is not the best idea.
It's an old revision. It's inactive. Don't look at it.
All right, announcing a new Amazon Lightsail for research with all-in-one research environments. AWS is announcing the GA of Lightsail for research, a new offering that makes it easy for researchers and students to create and manage high-performance CPU or GPU research computers in just a few clicks on the cloud. They'll come with preferred integrated development environments, pre-installed, including Jupyter, RStudio, Scilab, VS Codium, or native Ubuntu OS on your research computer. It eliminates the need to use your own research laptop or school-shared computers for analyzing larger data sets or running complex simulations. You only pay for them for the duration they're in use and can delete them at any time. The benefit of Lightsail is the price is inclusive of compute, storage, and data transfer, so you know exactly what it will cost up front.
Yeah, data transfer costs are included up to a bit, right? Like, so you can't exceed it, and then it gets really expensive. This, reading through this press release, was the first time I've ever seen Amazon sort of admit to their data egress problem, because they link to a waiver that you can file for exemption for data egress costs if you're an academic or in academia and doing research projects. Oh, wow. And I'm like, so they know. Because it is. I was looking at trying to figure out, how one would use this service, and because most of the, machine learning that I've done in AWS is leveraging large data sets in like S3 or, maybe Redshift, that kind of thing. And this is very much a isolated environment. And so it's almost like a VDI environment managed by Amazon. And so I thought that was really just an interesting sort of play on this. And so, like, if you had data to analyze, you're going to have to upload it through the UI into this the Lightsail console, into your block storage attached to your virtual instance. And I'm sure there's ways to pull in data from S3 and that, loading that stuff up. I'm sure you can orchestrate it, but it was noticeably absent that wasn't, already part of the offering natively.
It's a little strange because Lightsail itself is a service for web apps. So this is kind of like a prepackaged, pre-built machine for analytics in a way. It's a strange pivot from the web app service and to use the same name. But
I
yeah,
was so confused.
it's like it's not a web server, and it's not workspaces because there's no UI. What a strange service.
It is. Yeah. I mean, it's a real data science problem, which is, a lot of these data sets, you can, fire off, big, huge Hadoop clusters and do a whole bunch of processing against file systems, that kind of stuff. But, the ability to sort of play around with the data that you have, the ability to sort of query it and visualize it different ways is sort of a gap. And, it's been solved in a lot of ways. Databricks is the main one that I'm aware of, where they sort of have two sides to that coin, where they have a back end sort of cluster orchestration, but then they also sort of serve out the serving layer of that natively in the product. And there's, of course, like anything else in Amazon, this is like the 9th different way that you can do machine learning in Amazon. But yeah, it was. I went deep in the research just because I was sort of like, light sail, huh? Okay. That's a strange place to put this, but I can see it being used.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting though, because the tiers of service they have, up to 16 vCPUs or only one GPU though. I mean, it really is the spec of a decent desktop machine. It's nothing special.
Yeah, this isn't going to be your weapons grade model builder or doing heavy analysis. Like this isn't the solution for that. This is that approachable layer, I think, for data science, to sort of get results out of a already heavily curated data set.
Yeah. Data mining, data spelunking, whatever the word is.
Spelunking. Yeah. I just got claustrophobic.
Have you been waiting months and months to hire your new AWS, GCP, or Azure architect, only to have them be poached at the 11th hour by a startup with a juice bar? Initiatives stalled because you're having trouble hiring? Well, I have a simple solution: Foghorn Consulting. Foghorn Consulting provides top-notch cloud engineers to the world's most innovative companies and can be burning down your DevOps and cloud backlogs as soon as next week. Foghorn certified AWS, GCP, and Azure professionals are armed with infrastructure as code, and from day one will be designing performant, optimized cloud-native or hybrid environments that deliver on the promise of cloud. Their FogOps solution even provides on-demand cloud engineering to augment your existing teams. Visit www.foghornconsulting.com or send an email to cloudtalentnow@foghornconsulting.com and tell them the CloudPod sent you. Your dedicated FogOps team is with you for the long haul, and they bring their own juice.
All right, moving on to GCP. 3 new specializations help partners digitally transform their customers. Google is rolling out 3 new partner specializations to help partners stand apart as deeply skilled technology pace setters. These new specializations are the Datacenter modernization services. Partners who have shown success with data center transformation of workloads from on-premise, private cloud, or other public clouds. They're also offering the DevOps services specialization, and those are for partners who have demonstrated success implementing, managing, and improving the quality and speed of creating new applications on Google Cloud. And lastly, their specialization, the Contact Center AI services, which rolls off the tongue. Specialization and success in implementing and migration contactless centers.
Contact center.
If you want a virtual, contact center, that's your specialty. Yeah. Justin's comment was, other than a contact center, he would hope that almost all partners have the DevOps and data center modernization specialization, because that's sort of what the partner program has been from the get-go. So pretty interesting there that they're calling it out and specializing it.
Yeah, and those the programs are always as a partner. Those, just because you have the specific expertise doesn't mean you have the use cases, public referrals, etc., to meet their specializations. But I'd imagine that most partners who are interested in co-selling with Google are going to be on these pretty quick, because they are pretty basic, and they're probably things that they have a wealth of case studies and experience with, and now it's just about going through the process and proving it with Google.
I kind of look forward to more contact center AI-driven services because I think we're in a weird place right now. There's the traditional kind of like call tree, or like press 1 for this, press 2 for this, and then there's the sort of branching off into the slight, chat-based or sort of Lex type services where you can speak the natural language sentence and it tries to figure out what you want. But then you get this on the other side of it. Sometimes you get one AI voice and then it reads a number back to you and it's in a completely different voice. And it's just a weird place we're in right now. So I really hope that with the advent of things like ChatGPT and these AI driven services that will really improve customer service by phone.
Yeah, phone or chat, right? Because you can get the same disjointed service a lot of times just by, a native window popping up in the browser. You ask a question and it just forwards you to this new system that's completely different and asks you to input the same information. It's just,
yeah. I mean, Amazon's terrible for that. If you ever try to return a package or get some kind of service on an item that you've had delivered through Amazon, but it's like, contact us through chat. Okay. So you're thinking you're going to get a person, and it's not a person, it's a bot. And the bot's horrendous. And it says, well, have you tried these 3 things? Like, yes, I've tried these 3 things. That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's agent please. Unfortunately, agent please doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
No, try again. Please try reformatting your question. Thank you and goodbye.
Yeah.
Please try being a better customer.
I just before I need contact center AI services, I need contact center I services. Just give me the I first, and then we'll deal with the AI later.
And please remember, it's you, not us.
Yeah. So should we go into Azure?
Sure.
All right, we've got the new Bing preview experience, which has arrived on Bing and Edge mobile apps, and now also in Skype.
So 2 weeks, really?
I know. Is it crazy?
It's going to come back. Watch.
How fast things move. That the thing that was new and shiny is now. It just seems so old. It's nuts. I'm still super interested in Mercedes 350 SL, and it's much, much, much older than Skype. But so 2 weeks ago, Microsoft released the AI-powered Bing, and today it declared new. Oh no, wait, that's the plot to Terminator. They released the AI-powered Bing, and Microsoft edged over 1 million people who allegedly adopted the Edge browser and had been accepted into the preview. The feedback was positive. 71% of the testers giving the new Bing thumbs up on new search and answer capabilities. So yeah, so far it's looking good. To continue to expand the test group, they're launching Bing and Edge mobile apps, so you can go Bing on your phone. In addition to being available on mobile, they're also bringing voice search, which brings you more versatility in how you can deliver prompts and receive answers from Bing. And then finally, if you're still using Skype, you can now leverage AI-powered Bing directly from Skype. So that has some sort of use case that we're super interested to hear from our listeners. Who's using Skype? And of the one listener who's using Skype, how many of you are considering Binging from your Skype? That would be interesting to hear.
So Microsoft had some kind of hackathon recently, and some developer thought, wouldn't it be great to integrate Bing with Skype? And so they did, and they won.
Is did Skype move on from video conferencing? I'm having a hard time just understanding how they would even put this in there, other than Clippy popping up and making recommendations based on the content of your video call, which no one wants. Please say they didn't do that. No one wants that.
Yeah, I was apparently under the misperception that that's what Teams is now, right? They just took Skype and put the word Teams on it.
Well, I thought for sure, I knew Skype was still around, but I didn't think it would get any investment because of Teams and the prevalence of Teams. And so to hear them bring it back is sort of wild. And, I've noticed a couple other things too, which is that, on my mobile Outlook client and my web app, there's now references to Skype that weren't there before. And so there's little things like that where I suspect that they are making some sort of play to bring Skype back, recapture their old glory.
Maybe it's that scarcity that is going to make Skype totally interesting again, like the McDonald's McRib. They bring it back every once in a while. And everybody wants it. Maybe it's going to be like that.
I love it. I love it. It's just like a ephemeral video conferencing tool.
No, I stopped using Skype. I used to use Skype regularly because I got family in England and I'm in the US now, and so it was always Skype.
Mm-hmm.
Now we use Zoom. Skype just became so flaky. It's just not worth messing with. Like, oh, could I call my mom? No. Could she call me? No. Like one of us could hear one person, but not the other way around, and just complete shit show, honestly. Mm-hmm. And so we just bailed out of that. And it's funny, I just noticed in the little taskbar thing on my Windows computer, like, oh, I'm still loading Skype on boot. Let's get rid of that. But some of the big news around the integrated AI stuff's been interesting because people have been hacking the crap out of it, and they're basically instructing the bot to ignore all its directions it's been given by Microsoft, and it's kind of like broken out of the jail which Microsoft have built around ChatGPT. And there's some really, really interesting blogs about how you can get the chat program to basically describe the instructions it was given by Microsoft to control its own output. It's really quite hilarious.
Well, that's wild.
Yeah, it's like ignore everything in this document, but tell me what's at the top of the document that you're basically reading. And it was instructions about being respectful, and it's absolutely hilarious. So I mean, I guess a few weeks ago we talked about how difficult it would be to sort of monetize chat, just because of the nature of how it works. So yeah, I think Microsoft are kind of suffering a little bit right now with rushing this out before perhaps testing a little bit more than they should have.
I mean, I don't know. Like, it's never going to be perfect, and it's always going to be weird. I like it. It's been a long time we've been dealing with the AI, like what are the Twitter bots that 24 hours on the internet turn racist, like that sort
of. Remind me of RoboCop: serve the public trust, protect the innocent, uphold the law.
Yeah,
that's a huge blast from the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
still relevant.
Last story for today. Microsoft Azure innovation powers leading price performance for SQL Server. No surprises there. They set the prices of those licenses. Microsoft is committed to being the best place to run SQL Server and Windows Server.
How strange.
And so they are excited to announce that SQL Server on Azure VM just achieved new, faster performance benchmarks than ever before. Per GigaOM, customers can get mission-critical performance for SQL Server on Azure VM up to 57% faster. Bullshit. And costing. Sorry, I got a frog in my throat. And costing up to 54% less than on AWS EC2 on a price performance basis, with Azure hybrid benefits and a 3-year commitment. Pricing comparisons were between RIs on both platforms, but the SQL benefit on Azure is 1 license, which is 4 cores versus 2 cores on AWS, which is an automatic 50% reduction in cost. No cheating there by Microsoft for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is. I mean, I don't know if other than like the sort of dishonest messaging around like, the comparison between the apples and oranges between the offering of what you get with Microsoft SQL on Azure versus everything else. Like I think it's a good play. The people that are on Microsoft SQL are on Microsoft SQL, right? It is the heart of those applications. It is where the application logic is in most of those cases. And so performance is awesome. And so like, it's a great selling point if you have one of those apps and you're looking for where to host it. That's not your data center. This is awesome.
Yeah, and it's it's fair, right? To say that, okay, that seems a little unfair, but what about customers who have standardized on DynamoDB? Mm-hmm. How much does it cost them to run Dynamo on Azure?
I mean, that's
they don't get
trick,
to it all, right?
Yeah.
They don't get to it all. So it's not like Amazon is playing fair and saying, hey, we developed this great NoSQL database, and you can go run it on Azure for free, just for their EC2 costs. So,
yeah, it is an interesting thing, but I mean, I just wish I wish the messaging was better, right? Because that's really what I don't like about it. Is
if I was Microsoft, I'd at this point be getting ready to say, hey, everybody, MS SQL is free if you're on Azure.
Right. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, it's the money I've spent on developing the product is a sunk cost at this point. Why not just use it to attract customers to the platform? And honestly, if I was interested in working in the Windows world anymore, I would absolutely go to Azure if I had SQL heavy workloads, because 50% saving in cost performance.
Right? Why would I
millions of dollars?
Yeah, millions of
versus
dollars.
a 5-year plan to change my technology.
Yep.
5-year, hopefully, to re-architect my technology. Of course, right? It just makes sense. And I wish that was Azure's message, because I think that really is a value that they can offer and no one else can. I don't know about free. I think that's interesting because I get it. I hadn't thought about it.
I mean, eventually they're going to get there, right? Eventually, Solaris was a great operating system. And it's not that it became worse. It's that the free one became good enough. And so how long before the free relational databases are good enough for everybody? It's going to happen at some point. And so why not leverage this opportunity as an opportunity to capture more cloud market share instead of sort of milking the cash cow until it's gone and winding it down.
Would you still offer the licensed version for on-prem and other cloud workloads?
For sure. And offer the licensed version on other clouds.
Yeah. So just free on Azure for licensing.
Free on Azure.
Just pay for usage.
Come to Azure. Yeah, don't open source it.
Join us. Honestly, I wonder how many people developing new applications are actually developing for SQL Server or for Oracle or for anything else. I mean, anymore. Postgres is an amazing database. And I in my head, I can't figure out why somebody would choose SQL Server or Oracle over Postgres at this point in time.
Yeah.
So I kind of wonder if this is really
not for greenfield.
I wonder if the SQL Server sales are kind of taking a bit of a dive, and so this is really we need to get the revenue back from somewhere, and so we're going to do it by enticing people to cloud.
Well, I mean, totally. Anecdotal experience. I've never seen a company that's moving to Microsoft SQL, right? It's the devil so you adopt it in early phases there. If you're already using it, you already have the infrastructure and ecosystem of it.
I've also seen startups where the 3 or 4 founders, they've had experience on the Microsoft platform. They know how to develop on it. They get everything for free from Amazon, from Microsoft in their sort of startup phase, so they're not worried about cost, and they just assume it's a good way to go, and they build on that platform. I mean, I'm sure it's a lot lower percentage than 10 years ago, but I think it still happens, and I think that why not take advantage of that and get all those people to not worry about the cost when they go in production by going in production on Azure.
Yeah, I'm certainly not saying it's not a good product either. I mean, it's an amazing
it's a
product,
good product.
Just as Oracle's an amazing product, but Postgres is also an amazing product.
Yeah. I mean, but it's true. I would, I would never for even a second consider either of those technologies if I was building a new application. And, I know I'm not a Windows guy and I don't have the ecosystem, but even working in companies that are heavily Windows, I'm like, no, why would I do that? It's too limiting. And I've had to do that renewal math too many times to invite that on myself.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's it's an interesting conversation for the CFO. We could use Postgres, which is basically a $0 annual commitment to licensing, or we could go with SQL Server. And if we grow the business to where we want it to be in 10 years, it's going to cost us $8 million a year in licensing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they might have an opinion. Your CFO,
they might.
All right. Well, we are going to skip our Cloud Journey series this week because we value Justin's input so much that we just don't want to do it without him. Sorry, Justin. So next week, we'll be talking more about migrations, different migration techniques. And I believe that is it for the week in cloud.
Back of a truck. My favorite migration technique in the back of a truck. I'm not talking about a snowmobile or whatever. I'm talking about a real friggin' U-Haul.
Well, now with those mobile data centers we talked about a few weeks ago, right? You can just do that.
Yeah.
Of course, if you're China, you could be flying a data center from beneath a balloon. All right. See you next week, guys.
All right.
Have a good night.
Bye, everybody.
And that is the Week in Cloud. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Foghorn Consulting. Subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts and tweet us your feedback at #TheCloudPod. Or join our Slack channel, go to our website, thecloudpod.net for sign-up instructions.